Hello and welcome back to my studio. Today it's another beginner-friendly studio vlog where I show you one of the things that I do on an almost daily basis in order to warm myself up for a day painting, but also to familiarise myself with my favourite part of landscape painting, which is painting the sky. I think to paint loose watercolour skies that look fresh and lively and expressive and full of energy, it takes quite a lot of observation of the sky around you. So I'm always looking up at the sky to familiarise myself with the way the clouds move, the different types of light in the sky, colours, all that sort of thing. And then it's down to practice and trying to take a less is more approach so that I don't overwork my sky. I'd rather have a sky that's less than perfect than one that looks overworked. And this is why I practice my skies on an almost daily basis. Practice builds confidence, and I think confidence is really important when you come to paint a sky. That and using big brushes and plenty of paint. So I'm using Milford cold pressed watercolour paper. It's taped to my board with ordinary decorator's masking tape, and my board's at an angle of about 20 to 30 degrees. I've sketched out a simple scene, just a bit of land, a few trees, most of it is sky. I've wet the page all over with my large wash brush. It's a Princeton Aqua Elite Mottler brush, and now I've dipped into a really strong mix of cobalt blue with some indigo in it, and I'm going to create this sort of windswept sky. Starting off quite sort of dark at the top, you can see the cobalt blue is quite desaturated from the indigo, then allowing the paint to run out or wiping a bit of it onto a bit of absorbent paper towel. And you can see the paint beginning to flow down the page because of the angle of the board. But I'm not too worried about that. I'm just going to take a clean, damp brush and mop up a little bit of that flow, softening that cloud back as I go and lifting out a little paint to lighten the area up. I can then bring some paint across the horizon, keeping it nice and light, and I can start to indicate where my distant hills are going to be. I know from experience if I do too much more to my sky, I'm going to be in danger of overworking it, and this is where the practice comes in. You start to learn when to stop, because this sky doesn't look great at the moment, but I know that it'll dry into an expressive sky filled with light and movement, as long as I don't fiddle with it, because that could give me some really strange marks and make it look overworked. So I've sped the footage up now just to get a bit of land in, because this isn't a tutorial about the land, but I will explain what I'm doing. I like to put the land into my sky practices because then it gives me some context. This is raw umber and raw sienna to create a wheat field full of crop. Maybe using the fan brush just to bring up a little bit of the upright vertical texture of the stalks of corn in the foreground, and I've used a bit of sort of raw umber and my sky colours to give myself some distant mountains. I've dipped into some really nice dark colour and put a dark row of mountains in the distance, and you just saw me using a clean damp mop brush just to mop up a little bit of water that was beading up in my sky. Now that needs to be removed because that would dry unevenly. I've now laid my board flat because I don't need the sky to drift and move down the page anymore, and just before I leave things to dry completely, I'm using my size 5 palette knife just to scrape through that nice rich paint and start off my trees. So I can go and have a cup of coffee while I leave this painting to completely dry. And while I'm waiting, just a quick plug for my book, Landscapes in Watercolour, Techniques and Tutorials for the Complete Beginner. I've left a couple of links in the description below in case you're interested. There's an introduction to watercolour painting in general and 10 projects, 5 pure watercolour and 5 line and wash. Right, let's get back to the painting. As you can see here, it's dried and I'm really pleased with the sky. It's fresh, it's atmospheric, there's movement and there's life in it. And to be quite honest, I think I'd leave this sky practice here if I was painting for myself and not for the demo. But for the sake of just creating a painting that looks a little more finished, I shall speed the footage up and paint in the trees. So I'm just going to add a little bit more tone, hard-edged on the right and soft edged on the left using my size 2 quill brush into that distant row of hills. And then I'll mix up some of my raw umber and raw sienna, maybe a little bit of indigo and cobalt blue, and paint in some tree canopies. And I'll paint in the tree trunks with my rigger brush and indigo mixed with a bit of sepia. So the trees are just about painted in. I think, looking at the painting, my distant hills on the right are a little bit too dark. I'm struggling to get the trees to sort of cover over that area. But I don't mind really, because for me this practice session is all about painting the sky, and I'm very happy with the simplicity and the movement in the sky. So as I bring this painting to a close, just before it dries, I'm going to use my palette knife and just drag some branches through that paint, and that should help to add a little bit more definition to them and should hopefully bring them forward a little bit more in the picture plane. But if you try something like this at home, I'd suggest don't paint that distant mountain quite so dark, and I think you'll have a more effective painting. And put a little bit of shadow along underneath the trees as well. Just making sure I get them nice and dark, the trunks below the canopy, and just allow the trunks to sort of wet blend into the canopies in places and into the shadow. Then I can use my fan brush, maybe a bit of raw sienna, a bit of burnt sienna, a bit of sepia, and use that lovely shape of the fan brush to create some slightly stronger wet on dry brush strokes to suggest the foreground crop. And I think I'm sort of more or less happy with the painting as it is. And the thing I want to sort of impress on beginners is that it's really important, if you want to paint loose skies and loose landscapes, to practice. It's not just the act of painting that you're practicing, it's the act of knowing when to stop and trusting that the paint will dry looking very different to the way it looks when you put it on. And that's what painting loose skies are all about. It's building the confidence so that you know that what starts off by looking like a sort of bit of messy brushwork on the page will soften and diffuse and give you the illusion of a really atmospheric sky like this. So it's learning to trust the process. So I'm just tweaking that tree line a little bit more, softening back. There's a little bit of colour run under there, but I'm quite happy with this now. So I hope this demo will encourage beginners to strike out and practice skies on a regular basis, and to get used to leaving the sky before you think it's finished, when it's just sort of looking a bit strange, but get used to seeing how it dries and seeing how fresh and beautiful it ends up looking if you don't fiddle with it too much. And I think that's part of the trick of learning to paint skies. It's practice, it's confidence, it's also knowing when to stop. So if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, then please click on the thumbs up button. And if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, I'd invite you to do so. It's free to do and it really helps with our reach. And thank you so much to everybody that supports us on Patreon. We really do appreciate you. I'll see you again soon. Take care and happy painting. Bye.